Finally, I finished recording everything. Honestly, I'm surprised you did that all with that insane clown face paint. Must be annoying.
I mean, yeah, but it helps with the joke about edginess and everything.
Yeah, just wish we were reviewing an MLP thing.
Well, you did swear revenge and laid siege to my house.
You're not taking me alive, pony! So many just gone.
I mean, they're robots.
Well, of course, but they still bled green coolant.
I'm sure you'll get some more. Until then, now I need to get game footage. I think I still have an old game save from years ago. We don't have to do all 10 endings.
Seriously, 10 endings? What was Sega thinking?
That's why we're just gonna do 3. I do hero, you do dark, and other me does neutral.
You guys called me?
Yeah, we're just about to collect game footage.
Oh, about that.
What's going on here? Where the fuck is my save from years ago? I know it's right here.
Oh, I had to delete that save.
What?
Well, you see, we needed memory for Black, so I deleted the Shadow the Hedgehog save. See, that was why I was so big on avoiding this game. Was hoping we'd just skip it and do End War. Walter? That's Steps by Mio Hondo. What? Run, you fool!
Can you see all of me? Walk into my mystery. Step inside the long body light. Do you remember me?
So, Shadow the Hedgehog. Maybe it's best we start with some historical context. As stated prior, the early 2000s was a weird time for Sega. The Dreamcast went under, Sonic appeared on the GameCube, Sonic X was dubbed by 4Kids, and Penders was still at Archie. But the big thing about this era was Shadow the Hedgehog. I cannot overstate how popular Shadow was. Fans loved the Black Hedgehog. How popular, you may ask?
He's only the second most popular character in the whole canon!
And that is no joke. In fact, here's that list. As you can see, Shadow is only second to Tails. Sonic is only 5th right behind the robot from Linkin Park's Reanimation album.
I feel like I need sources on that.
My sources, I made it the fuck up!
Point is, Shadow was popular.
Think of it like this. Sonic was like America's Jesus Christ Superstar, while Shadow was the Soviet Lithuanians' The Devil's Bride, specifically the 2003 production because it has a motorcycle in it. So Sega decided to start development on a spin-off game featuring Shadow. It was to be a darker, edgier game. You can tell because Sega gave Shadow the one power Sonic could never wield.
Wow, a gun!
Yep, after years of fans asking Sonic to have a gun, Sega decided to give Shadow a piece. Makes sense, Sonic is the golden boy. Can't give him a piece.
It also helps that Sega wanted to make this into a series, you know, make it that Sonic is for kids and Shadow is for teens who swear in Halo multiplayer matches.
There was a lot of hype for this game. I personally remember logging into GameSpot.com every day in 2004 seeing if any new updates came for this game. I even remember when 4Kids allowed kids to type a message to air that I submitted my message revealing the game. Did it air?
Sadly, no, it was to air during Winx Club.
Yes, because when I think of Winx Club, I think of Edgy the Hedgie with a Glock.
It's a 1911, or a Heckler and Koch USP Technical? I had to use Internet Movie Firearm Gun Database to look this up.
Okay, but why Winx Club?
It was the only time slot available.
Ah.
Anyway, point is, everyone was hyped up to see Shadow use a gun.
I mean, look at Shadow, loading a magazine into his MP5 as he stands defiantly over a cliff as he pump loads a submachine gun.
Look, they probably used an airsoft gun, otherwise Shadow got a Troy 223 9 years before it was made. Okay, enough gun nerding from me.
And so fans awaited the arrival of Shadow, and in 2005 the game finally released. And how did fans take it?
Sonic Team! I'm booing this entire thing!
Inconsistent team.
Boo!
Yeah, fan reaction was mixed. The general consensus at the time was that the game was bad for a multitude of reasons. It had its moments, but generally not that great.
But then again, 06 would come out the next year, so yeah, Shadow the Hedgehog looks better in comparison.
That's a pretty low bar and you know it.
Fine. There are fans who love that game despite its flaws, and as I said in my Sonic Heroes review, you will be surprised about my opinions of this game. So with that out of the way, time code for when I talk about the story. Wait, what? Is that correct?
No, the script says that. Foreshadowing?
I suppose so. Regardless, we might as well begin, and since the other me deleted my save file, I'll have to play this all over again.
Please tell me you're using the GameCube version.
Sadly, no, it's the PS2 version.
Fuck!
I know. Look, I thought the PS2 was stronger than the GameCube. I mean, it could play Grand Theft Auto. Look, I was not aware of Nintendo's family-friendly game approach at the time, and yeah, that is why I'm using this version. It's what I have, but we're stalling enough. Let's begin.
So the game begins with Shadow looking at Westopolis, wondering about his past. All he can remember is this girl, the name Maria, and the fact that she gets shot. As Shadow ponders things, clouds appear as aliens invade.
Say what?
Shadow decides it's not worth his time before a voice calls to him. Meet Black Doom, leader of the Black Arms, and voiced by Goku. Black Doom tells Shadow to collect the 7 Chaos Emeralds and to complete the plan started years ago. Shadow is confused how Black Doom knows so much, but before he can get answers, the alien flies off. Shadow muses that if he wants to find out about his past, then like it or not, he'll have to get involved. And so our Byronic hero sets off for Westopolis, starting the first stage. Hey guys, how is everyone? Okay, still angry, I'll leave. I'm just gonna do commentary. So, Westopolis. Get used to this stage. Whenever you start a new path, you always start at Westopolis, and for the most part, Westopolis is a decent tutorial level. The stakes are low, most of the mechanics are explained, and you're given a good example of Shadow the Hedgehog's big feature, the quest mechanic. See, in Shadow the Hedgehog, each stage will have 3 objectives. Usually. One objective is tied with being a hero, the other a villain, and the third objective is just finish the level. Usually. I will get into more in-depth of this in the next run. Next run? Yep. This is just the neutral run. For a first story, I recommend doing a straight neutral run. Not because it's fun, because trust me, it's very boring, but because you need a run to get a feel for how the game plays. You know, controls and how Shadow does things. So, we're going straight into critiquing the controls. Rather different.
Well, this is Shadow the Hedgehog. It's a different experience from your standard Sonic game. Well, sort of.
So right off the bat, the controls are not exactly slippery, more like you're skating, which I guess is a fun thing given how Shadow moves, but the fun quickly wears away once you start the turn. Tight turning is near impossible at speed and Shadow hits top speed real fast. Now to be fair, most of the stages are pretty linear, so turning isn't too bad. For this run though. Ominous, I see. Outside of running, Shadow can do a homing attack, spin dash, and use lightning dash. Of these abilities, spin dash is worthless as there's really no reason to use this ability.
In fact, there was one place I used it consistently, and that was when I went down the dark route. Point is, this ability is worthless.
Light speed dash is returned, and it is as you expect. Find a trail of rings, hit the button, Shadow speeds forward. Big difference here is that some ring lines once collected leave phantom rings you can still ring dash through. Useful for when you have to backtrack.
Probably the best upgrade of this ability. But as this is a neutral playthrough, you aren't exactly backtracking all that much. Still, it's useful if you mess up, which does happen. I find that pressing up on the analog stick when you do a lightspeed dash helps mitigate any issues.
The homing attack, though, it's a little weird. On one hand, the range of this ability is incredible. Shadow can hit a target from quite a ways away, and it takes time to get used to. It also seems to have trouble with close-in targets, but like I said, it takes time to get used to.
On the other hand, you don't want to use this attack.
Wait, really? So like heroes, enemies have health bars. Now, most of the enemies have pretty low health, only requiring 1 or 2 hits. You know, like most Sonic games. But as the game progresses, you encounter enemies with almost boss-like health bars, and you will soon learn that the homing attack is pretty worthless.
But as I said, we're in the neutral playthrough. You don't really deal with too many enemies.
Filling out the kit is wall running and rail grinding. Wall running builds off the triangle jump from the previous game, as you can now briefly run on a wall before jumping to the opposite wall or fall to your doom. Most of the time the game uses this ability, there's usually an obstacle like lasers or spikes that forces you to be careful. It's frustrating but not the worst. The problem with this ability is it tends to activate whenever you jump at a wall. Pro tip, be careful when you use the homing attack for platforming.
Rail grinding is much the same from Sonic Heroes. They did improve rail switching. Don't like that there are times when you need to use a gun when grinding, but that doesn't come up all that much.
If I had an issue with rail grinding, some of the rail positions are weird, like the game can't tell if I need to jump on a rail or walk onto a rail. A bit of a shame given how decent the rail grinding is. Eventually you will finish your first playthrough, at which point you will need to make a decision to be good or evil. In a neutral playthrough, it doesn't really matter since you'll fight Egg Dealer regardless.
It's a tedious boss in more ways than one.
Why is that foreboding?
Because, my friend, we just finished one story. We need to play a minimum of 10 different stories to finish this game.
But there's only 5 ending stages.
Yes, but each ending stage has a hero and dark ending. And we need to play each ending.
What?
Oh yes, we have to do this again.
So we start in Westopolis.
Did I mention you have to do this stage 10 times? I don't think we did.
This time around, we decide to switch things up and actually do one of the missions offered. This mission will vary depending on the level you are on. Usually there's something like destroy a certain number of enemies or collect certain items or just reach the end of the stage.
Rarely are the missions the same, though Westopolis is a bit of a unique situation.
See, the game tracks your progress for both missions and won't end the stage until one of the missions is complete. Now, you won't exactly know what the mission is until you find your guide, but regardless, the game still tracks. It helps to have a walkthrough on hand to know what missions each stage has. Until then, you technically won't know how far you are into a mission until you find your guide for that route. Guides don't do much gameplay-wise other than comment on the area or give you hints on your progress for the mission.
Though some are playable if you have the PS2 version, if I recall.
You can switch out guides with the press of the D-pad, but be aware that the game will sometimes try to force a guide on you, which thankfully you can change with the press of the D-pad. Okay, so what about the missions? Why are they important?
Well, depending on which mission you want to accomplish will determine where you go on the chart.
While the game has 22 levels, you only ever play 6 in a route. The missions you accomplish will set you on one of 326 paths. That's a lot of paths.
Thankfully, you only have to finish this game 10 times.
It's a good idea to have an end goal in mind. Just because you're evil early on doesn't mean you have to be evil all the way through. At any moment you can switch to a different alignment, though you might be locked out of different endings simply because the path is only 6 levels long.
Like I said, it's a good idea to have an end goal in mind. Like just now, finished another story.
We start again?
Yep, back at Westopolis. Did I mention you have to play this mission 10 times? I don't think I have.
As you play through the game, you'll start to notice how tedious these missions are. Whether it's destroying enemies, lighting torches, or just finding a random MacGuffin, your objective might be off the beaten path, forcing you to search everywhere. Now, thankfully, the game does try to recognize what path you're on and guide you to accomplish that objective, but other times, not so much. So what happens if you miss something?
Well, you can use a checkpoint to warp back and check around.
Yeah, at any checkpoint you can warp back to any other checkpoint you activated. I cannot state how invaluable this is, as there are far too many instances where I am so close to finishing a stage, only to reach the end and realize I have to take another route just to finish the level. When I say this game is tedious, I mean it's tedious.
Thankfully, you usually have the option to just reach the end of the stage, but do be wary that certain endings will require you to do those objectives.
Any particular missions you hated?
Westopolis!
The first stage?
No, I mean, I'm doing Westopolis again. Did I mention I have to do this stage 10 times? I didn't. Well, let's go!
So let's talk about stages I hated. Most of these are stage 4 stages, but not all. Central City. This stage is very open and easy to get lost in. Your missions are either to activate the big bombs or destroy the little bombs. And guess what? There's no goal ring and a time limit. Normally I appreciate a rather open world level, but this is just... no. It's tedious and just a maze. I kinda wish I had a map. Mad Matrix. For Hero, you have to activate 5 terminals on a grid maze. Dark Side, activate 30 bombs on the grid maze. And Neutral is find the goal ring, by somehow selecting the right terminal to go to. How did I finish this level?
I have no idea!
No joke. I have no idea how to finish this stage effectively. Hero and Neutral ones, I just guessed the direction. I only ever finished the Dark Side once, and it was by mistake. No idea how I got an A ranking in that stage.
And then there's the Doom and Last Impact, the 2 missions set back 50 years ago.
The problem with these missions is that they're mazes. Both require you to hunt around the entire stage just to find researchers. Our gun troops are experiments. I actively avoided the Doom because of how tedious it was back in the day. It also doesn't help that enemies that fill up the Chaos Control gauge are few and far between, so even using Chaos Control to reach the neutral ending is difficult.
Wait, what about Chaos Control?
Oh, I forgot about that. Next playthrough, starting with Westopolis. Did I mention you had to play this mission 10 times?
Yeah.
I didn't think so!
So by this point you probably noticed these 2 gauges. These are your Hero and Dark gauges. Once filled, these allow Shadow one of 2 Chaos abilities, Chaos Control or Chaos Blast. By killing a lot of evil enemies or by doing good deeds, the Hero meter will fill up, allowing Shadow to access Chaos Control. This acts like a level skip as Shadow races forward. It's useful if you're trying to reach the end of the stage as fast as possible. Commit evil acts and destroy good enemies and you'll gain access to Chaos Chaos Blast. Think of this as like a screen nuke that destroys everything on screen. These abilities sound pretty useful. They're actually pretty worthless. Wait, what? So the problem with these abilities is that they tend to do more harm than good. Take Chaos Control for instance. Yes, the ability sends Shadow forward, but unless the stage's objective is to do that, you just skipped over large parts of the stage you need to search. Doesn't matter if there was a MacGuffin you needed to collect or destroyed, you just skipped right past it to the goal ring, which most of the time results in completing the neutral mission of the stage. Chaos Blast isn't much better as this attack destroys everything. While that might not seem bad at first, remember that some missions may require you to destroy certain targets, so it's possible to accidentally destroy enemies you had no intention to harm. It's also pretty short range. Basically, the Chaos powers are less and more
Power. Unlimited power. Minutes. Unlimited minutes. Hello? Oh.
So is there any reason to use the Chaos powers? Well, it makes Shadow invincible and gives his weapons unlimited ammo. And how do the weapons work? I'll get right to that. Right after I start a new story. Starting with Westopolis. Yes, we know 10 times. No. I don't think you do know. So as I said earlier, the homing attack in this game is pretty worthless. Good for platforming and not much else. I mean, you can use it for combat, but come on. Rather quickly you will learn that Shadow will have to be strapped at all times, if only for the simple fact that guns just destroy everything. Enemy health bars just melt the second you pump lead into them. It's actually quite cathartic at times, but can become painful the second you lose a gun due to ammo or because you accidentally homing attacked an enemy and got sent into the abyss. The second you lose a gun, you need to get another one stat because, oh boy, it will hurt until you do. So how does the gunplay work? It depends on what weapon Shadow is carrying. There are different types of weapons Shadow can carry, but only guns are really viable, mostly because ammo is aplenty and Shadow auto-aims. Not well, but it is there. Do kind of wish there was a manual aim or aim down sights mode, but I'm being picky. Shadow does well with standard firearms, laser weapons as well, even if their ability to bounce off walls is a bit gimmicky. Regardless, the second you get that KS meter filled in, the Mad Mint begins and Shadow becomes all powerful. But then you get to bazookas and things really fall flat. Bazookas require Shadow to manual aim, as in you aim with this finicky reticule. It's not intuitive, partially because of how sensitive Shadow moves. Just one little move here or there and you just missed a shot. I guess it helps that bazookas stop Shadow the second you fire, but it feels clunky more than anything. Add in the slow rate of fire and pitiful damage and these are kinda pointless. Much like melee weapons. Seriously, who thought this was a good idea? I mean, they give you range and are better than Shadow's CQC. Wait, Shadow knows CQC?
I give my life, not for honor, but for you.
Okay then, but like I said, pointless. And then there's the vacuum. It's situational and only really useful in a mission or two. Finally, there are lock-on weapons. Lock-on weapons are kinda better if only because they lock onto targets, but look at this. I hit the mech with 2 rockets and it's still up. Granted, lock-on weapons are useful against bosses. Why is that? Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity? No? You have to play Westopolis 10 times. Fuck! So the game kind of expects Shadow to be carrying a gun on him at all times. Not a bad thing until you get to the bosses. These guys are absolute units when it comes to health. Using the homing attack on them is practically worthless as the damage you do is pitiful. But remember, guns do max damage. Except, well, maybe this skit will explain it better. Alright boss, time for you to go down. Ah, but I have so much health and your homing attack is weak. You'll need a gun to defeat me. Ah, but I have a gun. Ah, but not so fast because I have a shield that makes me immune to bullets. Then how the fuck am I supposed to damage you? You'll have to rely on the homing attack or shoot me at a specific time. But I don't have enough ammo to kill you, plus there's not enough ammo around. Sucks to suck. This pretty much explains bosses. In fact, let's go through all of them. Black Bull. The first version is actually pretty fun. Use the homing attack to jump on the flying enemies and hit Black Bull's eye like 3 times before he runs. Rinse and repeat. Now, midway through you get a gun. Problem. The second you shoot Black Bull, he runs away forcing you to chase. His second form is stationary, but the only way to hit him is on rails. Guns respawn, but aiming on rails is terrible, so I guess homing attack it is. Heavy Dog and Blue Falcon. Heavy Dog moves around the stage forcing you to homing attack him. You have to keep above the ground or else he'll use an area of effect attack to hurt you. He also drops bombs, but the game does little to explain what these things do. There are no guns in this stage and you have to damage him enough to get a rocket launcher, at which point it fires rockets, collect ammo, rinse and repeat. Blue Falcon is slightly easier as you have guns from the get-go, but now now the platform is smaller, Egg Breaker. Regardless of which of the three forms you have to fight, Eggman chases after you and attacks so fast you question how on earth he keeps losing to Sonic. But hey, at least you have respawning weapons, just don't use the rocket launcher. But then you have the end of the run bosses. Egg Dealer isn't too hard, but you fight him at the end of so many runs it gets tiring. Also doesn't help you have to spin the roulette wheel to effectively damage him. Black Doom is actually a reasonable fight. The difficulty slowly gets harder as the fight continues, but if you use your ammo carefully and not shoot at him when he has a shield, it's all good. And then Sonic and Diabolon, one of the most creative boss fights I have ever seen in a Sonic game. Not only do you have to fight Sonic, but also a robot commanded by the Gun Commander. It is one of the most frustrating bosses I have fought. I hated this boss fight because guess what? Diabolon has a shield that stops any and all attacks because apparently it's Tiger Drop from Yakuza. Attacking Sonic doesn't really do anything as he's more of an obstacle. Also, his AI goes from competent to confused to Florida Man in seconds. What makes this boss fight frustrating is when Diabolon lowers its shields because that's when it attacks. But guess what? Only when the mech attacks can you attack back, meaning you have to get in close, avoid, and attack and quickly unload on the robot. You can try to use guns, but the window of opportunity is so small it's better to just play this game as Edgy the Hedgy Dark Souls edition. And that's not a joke at the difficulty, I legit felt like I was playing some weird version of Dark Souls, having to wait for this boss to make an opening for me to attack. And I don't even play Dark Souls. Now what about Chaos Control and Chaos Blast? Do these help in any way? Not really. Chaos Control simply slow down time, but all that does is mean it will take longer to wait for the enemy to get into position to be attacked. Chaos Blast helps, but it just takes a flat bit of health from the enemy. If you truly want to do damage to these bosses, you have to wait for the Chaos meter to fill up and unload all the bullets into them. I do not like fighting bosses in this game, but at the very least you don't fight too many. On a similar note, the target missions. While technically not bosses, there are 3 missions that involve Shadow destroying a very powerful target before it runs away. Like before, you need a gun. Like you really need a gun. The first version of this mission at least allows you to use the homing attack. I don't know why you would do this, but you can. But the other 2? You need a gun on hand to damage these targets. So yes, if you want to finish Airfleet's Dark mission, you need to shoot the president.
That one didn't age quite so well.
These missions in particular annoy me because I have no idea how much damage I'm doing. Like, have a health bar or something, or maybe give me a chart that shows me how close the target is to escape, like in Sonic Adventure. Let's change the subject. What about the vehicles? So did I tell you about Westopolis? So vehicles are kinda pointless. On some missions you'll encounter vehicles. Don't bother. Outside of extra health, vehicles don't really add much. They slow you down and can't really harm enemies. Now there are a few instances you need to use vehicles, usually because the floor is lava and you need a safe means to travel.
It burns! It burns!
In those cases, the game will provide a hover disc and in one instance cars. For the most part, the vehicles you want to be on the lookout for are the Mech Walkers and the Black Hawks. Mech Walkers because their jump is really high. Bonus points if you can find the version with the machine guns. You won't jump high, but you will have unlimited ammo. Black Hawks, however, to access these you need to find a Black Hawk that you can board and then beat it into submission much to PETA's protest. Then you can mount the animal and fly on an on-rails moment. It's eh. Like I said, vehicles are kind of pointless. Now if these vehicles had weapons, they might be useful, like that one Mech and Black Hawk variant. But for the most part, useless. It's a shame because I can see Shadow using vehicles, like his motorcycle. I mean, it was all over the advertising. But much like the 2003 production of Devil's Bride, the motorcycle's overhyped for how little it appears. Are there any other gameplay mechanics? I mean, you can lift up boxes and certain items, but outside of some missions, it's really not much to talk about. Ah, I see. So now we talked about the visuals, the things that make you go, wow. Oh, and what is it like?
Well, I would tell you, but I haven't unlocked the cutscene.
No.
Yes.
Westopolis again. Please, no. Did I mention you played this level 10 times? Visually, the game is all over the place. The game tries to lean into a dark and gritty aesthetic. Think something like Linkin Park or Korn with bits of insane clown posse when Eggman is involved. In a way, it reminds me of Mercenaries Are Black. The issue is once the Sonic characters appear. These guys still have the plastic sheen of heroes, which contrasts poorly with the rest of the world. Like, look at this scene with Shadow standing with the black arms. If you told me Shadow was dimension jumping and this was the result, I would believe you. But no, this all occurs in the Sonic universe, and the humans don't really fit. I mean, I can kinda see these guys living in the same world as Sonic, but it doesn't work as well as SA2, especially with how gritty Shadow the Hedgehog is. What's a shame is you can make a gritty Sonic world. I know this because of the pre-rendered cutscenes. Look at these! They're no masterpieces, but even years later, these pre-rendered cutscenes look amazing. I look at these and can totally believe a cartoon hedgehog can live in the same world as a post-9/11 US military and demon aliens from outer space. Like, this would have been amazing as a movie. But then you get the in-game cutscenes and it's Sonic Heroes all over again. I mean, it's still decent, but come on, I know you can do better. What about the sounds?
Well, I guess we can get into that, but oh, look at this. I need to record more footage.
Ah! Yes, Westopolis is played 10 times.
I thought you didn't know.
Okay, so let's not ignore the elephant in the room. Yes, this game was dubbed by the 4Kids cast of Sonic X. Blame Sega of Japan on that. They wanted to streamline everything. The cast does a decent enough job. Hats off to Jason Griffith as Shadow, as I feel he does a good job in the role. Mike Pollock, as always, does an amazing job, but the honor should go to Sean Shemel and the sacrifice his vocal cords did as Black Doom.
Do these fools really believe they can stop me? As you can see, the day of reckoning will soon be here. Shadow, you seem troubled.
You!
Look, your opinion of this cast will come down to if you like the 4Kids cast or not. It's not great, but again, this was their first game doing this. If anything, it just sounds like they got some bad lines.
A Chaos Emerald? You've gotta be kidding me, guys. This is like taking candy from a baby, which is fine by me.
Once again, I have failed my duty to protect our nation.
Sir, it's not over. We can continue to fight. The Black Aliens may have rendered us unable for now, but we will rally, sir. You must keep your nation strong and together.
Hey, Shadow. I gotta ask you something. Vector told me that he wants me to find 5 top-secret discs. Well, like, what's a top-secret disc?
Pretty much. It doesn't help that the game was gunning for the new E10 rating at the time. Why is that important?
Because originally this game was going to go full M-rated with Shadow saying fuck.
Well, that's just stupid. If you're gonna go full on edge, you might as well just accept it. If anything, it would be funny to have an M-rated Sonic game.
I know, instead Shadow just says,
Damn, not here.
And the music? No, please. You already played Westopolis 9 times.
oh yes.
Did I mention you have to play this level 10 times? Soundtrack here is certainly a mix. You have songs that fit the dark and gritty aesthetic. But you also have songs that remind you that this is technically a Sonic game. Look, it's a Sonic game. The soundtrack is generally going to be good.
It is loud, but
Not in a Sonic Heroes kind of way. Sound effects are also okay, a bit generic when it comes to gunfire.
could be worse, but hey, what's with this music video?
Oh, this is Tripod Baby from M-Flow.
Is it in the game?
No, but it was used in advertising. Yeah, this is one of the weirder things to come out of this game. So N-Flow is a Japanese hip-hop group. They're known for contributing songs for Beatmania, winning Mnet Asia Music Awards Best Asia Hip Hop Artist Award in 2004, and for their album Beat Space 9. Apparently members Taku and Verbal are fans of Shadow, collaborated with Sega, and we got a remix version of Tripod Baby.
We bring it up because the song is associated with Shadow at times.
Okay, is that all?
Well, now we get to talk about the story, because guess what? I just unlocked the last way.
What? So at some point, Shadow collects the Chaos Emeralds. Don't ask how, that's not important. Black Doom congratulates Shadow on this task as Sonic and friends at Eggman tell Shadow to not give the emeralds to Black Doom. But it's too late as Black Doom teleports the Black Comet onto Earth. As it turns out, the comet would not be able to survive entry onto the planet, so teleporting the comet was necessary for the invasion to proceed. Black Doom later explains Professor Gerald Robotnik's hand in the invasion. 50 years prior, Gerald was running out of option to save Maria. Desperate, he decided to make first contact with Black Doom. Black Doom agreed to help Gerald, but in turn for providing assistance making Shadow would serve as Black Doom's agent, in essence selling out all of humanity. This comes as a shock to Shadow and Eggman. Sonic and the game, however, decide to finish this.
I'll crush that cosmic rock ball!
Knuckles, what's wrong?
A special weapon. This gas, once released, is quickly absorbed into your bloodstream.
Nerve gas, quick, where's the atropine?
So Black Doom deploys nerve gas, yes you heard that right, to paralyze the planet and feed his troops. But Shadow, thanks to Maria's love, is able to resist the nerve agent and head off to fight Black Doom. One level later, and Shadow confronts the alien warlord. Unfortunately, Black Doom reminds Shadow that Shadow is part Black Arms, meaning he can exert some control over Shadow. Shadow can only watch in horror as everything falls apart.
And then the Chaotix.
What? Okay, so the Chaotix are on a mission from, I don't know, Kane from the Brotherhood of Nod, to look into the space colony Ark. The group is able to activate an old program on the Ark that plays a video from the professor that plays across the world. Gerald Robotnik explains the situation from his end, so let's get everyone up to speed. 50 years ago, Joe Robotnik was tasked by the government to look into immortality. Initially he refused, but his granddaughter got sick, forcing Gerald to accept. While Gerald was able to placate the government for some time, the failures from the BioLizard meant funding was slowly being cut. What's worse was Maria, as her condition was becoming critical. In his haste to find a cure, Gerald turned to the Black Arms for assistance. Only too late did the professor realize the truth of the deal. The Black Arms intended to harvest the planet for power and resources. What's more, Gunn somehow got wind that Gerald was working with the aliens, no doubt remembering that one time the Jarl contacted Bill Clinton. So they decided to shut the program down. With what time he had left, Gerald devised the Eclipse Cannon, a weapon capable of destroying the Black Comet. The video ends with Gerald and Maria telling Shadow to stop the Black Arms and protect the Earth. This ties up some loose ends from SA2. The video is enough to break Black Doom's control over Shadow. Black Doom escapes, becoming a demon prince, while Shadow becomes super, fights Black Doom, and wins. With the power he has, Shadow chaos controls the comet back into space before using the Eclipse Cannon to destroy the space rock. The world celebrates with Gunn realizing they may have acted too harshly to Gerald Robotnik. Sonic and friends congratulate Shadow. As for Shadow, he takes one last look at the picture of Maria and Gerald. Shadow lets go of the picture, free of the grips his past had on him, as he now knows who he is. The world is now at peace with a new hero.
And that's Shadow the Hedgehog.
Got to say, it's actually a pretty good ending.
I know, right? Too bad it's stuck to this terrible story.
Let's rewind, shall we? Remember how this story began. Shadow is wondering about his past, aliens invade, and Shadow decides to get involved. Fine. And then what? How the fuck did we go from this to this? There's no explanation, or if there is one, it makes no sense. According to Sega, the true path is Shadow does a pure good route, but as some fans have pointed out, this makes no sense. It also doesn't help that it appears at times that certain events in the story are important for Shadow, like when the gun commander tries to confront Shadow only to fail at shooting the Hedgehog, or better yet the Chaotix. You do encounter these guys on certain routes, but even then, how does this lead to the true ending?
This is probably the biggest problem with the story, and to an extent the game. Nothing is really explained. I'm okay with giving the players the choice to decide Shadow's morality, but given the game is supposed to explore Shadow's past, you can't really do that if only certain paths lead to exploring Shadow's past. In fact, that's why I wrote this review to be this way, to give you the feeling as to how disjointed and confusing this story and game is.
I think the idea is that the developers intended you to go through all the stages, to fully explore the story in some weird fragmented way, but I can tell you from experience it's possible to miss certain missions. I kinda suspect that during development, Shadow the Hedgehog was intended to have a more linear campaign. Instead, we get this jumble mess of alternative paths and the like. It's telling that when Snapcube's parody retelling of the story makes more sense than this game. It's telling that a mindfuck of a game like Marathon fucking Infinity is easier to follow than Edgy the Hedgy the video game.
And you wanna know what really pisses me off about this story?
Please don't explode.
You have to play this game 10 fucking times just to unlock the true fucking ending!
Why? Why 10? What was the fucking point of having me play this game 10 fucking times? I can understand maybe 3. Rad Ray, a friend of mine who does the Sonic Historian podcast and the Coast to Coast show, said he was only able to do the campaign 3 times before he loses interest. That should have been enough for the last ending. Just 3. I say this not because I'm lazy, but because there's an expert mode. An expert mode that acts as a canon prologue to the story. Do you want to know how to unlock this?
You have to A-rank every mission. Not stage, mission. That is 71 fucking A-ranks you have to get.
That's excessive.
Yeah, it's excessive.
I can understand unlocking this mode after beating the game 10 times. That at least feels fair, but not 71 A-ranks. And it's worse if you want to 100% this game, because now you have to get all 362 endings and keys. Keys?
Yes, keys. Cause in every stage there are 5 keys that unlock a door.
What does this door do?
It holds something, usually a vehicle or a weapon or a secret path. It's really not worth it if I'm going to be honest.
Okay, but what about other modes? Surely there's something more to this game than just replaying the missions.
Well, there is a multiplayer mode.
Is it like Sonic Adventure 2?
No, it's worse.
How worse?
Just 3 deathmatch arenas with 6 different shadows. Here, I got Commandramon and an Irby to play.
So then, what's your final opinion of this game?
It's not a good game, and I recommend playing it.
Explain now!
Well,
Shadow the Hedgehog is not a great game. It has some serious flaws, but here's the thing. You can see the potential in here. Shadow the Hedgehog has some good ideas, just terrible execution, and that's why I recommend playing this game, to ask yourself, how would you do a Shadow the Hedgehog game?
For instance, I have some ideas. One idea would be to make the game an open world game like Mercenaries Playground of Destruction or GTA, and have Shadow running around the map doing his thing as he explores the story. Or maybe make it that you go through every stage in a linear fashion, but give the player the ability to pick the mission they play. Then, by the end, those choices result in one of 3 different end stages. That way, when the player goes back, they can tweak what they did in order to get a better ending. I kinda saw that with this game as I was slowly getting accustomed to the stages.
Or maybe set the entire game as a Groundhog's Day loop, with Black Doom reminding Shadow of what must be done. Shadow then goes through the campaign multiple times, remembering everything he has done, which can change the context of certain scenes. Like, is Shadow fast enough to avoid the gun commander's shot, or has he gone through this scene so many times it's just second nature to him? Or the 4th Chaos Emerald line. Is Shadow saying that because he doesn't know, or because he's trying to remember which timeline leads to this path to the Emerald? Or what about the gameplay? How would you handle firearms and vehicles? Would Shadow sacrifice speed in order to effectively use firearms, or would you avoid those weapons entirely? And vehicles, what would you have done better with them?
Exactly. And what about the multiplayer? Fans have modded this game to have a co-op campaign, so would that be viable? Look, what I'm saying is that there is something here to this concept. As is, it feels unpolished, which, funny story, back in the day, I remember this game came out 1 month earlier than announced, and I got so excited. Then later on I wondered if maybe this game needed that month. As of now, the game is only available on GameCube, PS2, and Xbox. No PC ports sadly, but remember this game had to have been modded somehow.
Ah, emulation.
Hey, that's up to you. I personally don't do emulation, but that's just me. Maybe one day Sega will re-release this game for the PC, though given Sonic X Shadow Generations, probably not. But maybe one day. Something I keep saying to myself about the Shadow the Hedgehog PS2 controller. Maybe one day I'll get it. One day. Until then, I guess we're gonna have to go on to the next review. I'm thinking something strategic.
Something like Tom Clancy?
Indeed. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you there.